So today's guest is no stranger to the podcast. I've actually quoted Joe in one of our earlier episodes where he actually spoke about something that really stuck with me. He basically questioned in one of his previous talks if conversational AI was truly even the best way for humans to interact with AI when let's be real, many of us are not even that great with articulation. And it stuck with me. So it's really special for me to have Joe in person with us here today to continue that conversation. And Joe, welcome to the Product Street. We're elated to have you here.
Thank you, Vetha. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm a big fan.
Oh, yeah, I'm honored. I know from your LinkedIn profile your fascination about the behavioral economics and human cognitive biases, understanding how people think about themselves and the human dynamics and that whole approach over there really contributes to how we lead, understanding that better. When you look back at your own leadership journey, what kind of strengths did you notice about yourself, which about building people, that became such a core part of how you lead today? Because I feel like human dynamics is such a big theme in leadership today more than it was before.
I'm not sure if human dynamics is more today than it was before. I think we understand it better.
Yes, we talk about it more today.
Yeah, I agree. Back when I was growing up, it was unusual. Leaders were a certain style. You were more manager and less. It seemed like leadership wasn't emphasized as much. And then all of a sudden we've got a whole bunch of books. Everybody writes all the books about leadership, and you learn all the different things we learn. And yes, as you mentioned, the thing that probably changed in my life, one of the main focuses in my life, is when I really got into behavioral economics and into the specific area of cognitive biases. And the idea that we have all these, amazing number of biases that work for and against us every day, and yet we still function. I mean, you think about all the things are between confirmation bias and relevancy bias and all these things that are working sometimes against us doing rational things, yet we come out semi-rational to end with. How amazing. It's like everything comes together and cancels each other out so that you can be a rational human being and survive. That was probably the discovery in my life that I realized to be curious about, to think about. If all this stuff is working not against you, but at odds with you, how is it we still function? How is it we still do? And it turns out that journey is really one that we all share. It's a heartfelt, it's a semi-spiritual journey of wanting to be better tomorrow. Oh, yeah. And because of that, our curious self gets really involved in trying to overcome those biases. Yeah. So to me, finding out about cognitive biases, I was about probably 25, 30 years old. And then all of a sudden I just kind of drank from the fire hose and kept learning and learning. I was like, wow, this stuff goes on forever. And even today, I'm learning new ones every day. Today, they're more in practice. You see them more obvious at least than I did when I was 20.
Oh yeah, totally. Semi-spiritual. I really love how you frame that.
It is, isn't it though? Yeah. It is. We're on a journey.
On the flip side though, did you happen to notice your approach or a mindset of yours that happened to be a stumbling block to how you wanted to lead effectively?
It's fascinating that when I started my career, I started off as an electrical engineer. And as an electrical engineer, going into software engineering wasn't as common back then. Matter of fact, we didn't really have degrees for software engineers. So as an electrical engineering, my first job was actually a combination of electrical engineering and software engineering. What I found out really early, probably the first life lesson I learned was, I need immediate gratification. Just do. And electrical engineers back then, you would sit down and draw a circuit down, you'd give it to a prototyper, they would build it up, it would take a couple weeks to get the circuit built. Then you'd have to send it to a factory to go get it all laid out. And by the time you got it back, you're like, it was too long.
Yeah.
A software engineer, I could just sit down and start writing code and in a matter of hours have something that worked.
Right, and you can see it.
Exactly, yeah. And I hate to admit it, but I'm a sucker for immediate gratification.
Oh, yeah.
I think we all want immediate feedback. And that's how I became a software engineer, was I decided to lean into that. And during that journey, I discovered something along the way. I was instantly distracted by things, meaning I was I was like into the next new thing. And I found a lot of my friends weren't as, they were too, but not as much as I was. And about 27, 28 years of age, or maybe it was a little later, I was actually, it was becoming a problem for me. It was because I couldn't focus on what I was trying to do. And I went to, believe it or not, a psychiatrist to learn a little bit about what this was about. I believe in full honesty with yourself.
Yeah.
And found out that I was clinically ADHD. And as an adult, that's more rare than as a child.
Oh, yeah.
And back then, that was not well as known. And during that course of doing that, I was done the classic thing. I was given medicine to try to compensate for it. That medicine was horrible. It dulled my senses. It made me very uncreative. And I didn't want to live with that. I didn't want to do that. So what I did is instead, I went to a retreat, I went to a leadership retreat, and discovered a lot about doing things, learning a lot about yourself by being in the moment. I learned a lot about meditation practices. And I actually that week had to give up the medicine. And I did this meditation practice. And in this meditation practice, I got the result I needed better than the medicine. Brought my creativity back and lowered me into the place I wanted to be. So the reason I mention that is because once you start to understand how your body and your mind operates, you can go with it. So now I haven't taken medicine since I was 30 on it. I live in it. I'm different. I run fast. As you can tell, I'm talking very fast. But I've used it to my advantage. And that's a really important thing, is that the things that you think may hold you back can actually be what sets you up to be different.
Yeah.
So I'm a different kind of leader than everybody else. And hopefully everybody is a different leader than everybody else.
Yes.
Because you have to play, that string in the violin that was given to you. Mine happens to be in a world of ADHD, and I use it to my advantage.
Yeah.
And sometimes it gets in my way, and sometimes it's helpful. So that probably is the biggest life moment that helped me understand who I was.
Yeah, but that's very brave of you, though, to give up on medication and to seek out a more sustainable option for you, which will do you more good than bad in the long run.
That's right.
Because let's be real, these days, a lot of people have self-diagnosed ADHD. Because if I know that I'm distracted and not able to pay attention to one thing, they happen to just label that as, oh, I have ADHD.
Yeah.
But it's a lot more different than that, because you were clinically diagnosed to have ADHD, and then I think that takes a lot of courage.
That's a great point, Vetha, is that there is a lot. We keep telling that joke, that humans these days have the attention span less than a goldfish, right?
Yes.
The 7-second, 8-second mythical attention span. And we often want to attribute it to something. Sometimes it's just your behavior. Sometimes it's who you are. If you look at the diagnosis for ADHD, at my time when I was diagnosed, there was these 10 criteria that was in DSM-5, and they basically said they must be debilitating for you. So I think everybody's distracted. I think everybody's got a distraction to them.
Yes.
Some of it's discipline, some of it's just hyperactivity.
Oh yeah.
But when it starts becoming debilitating that you can't do your job, then you can start talking about it, and then you have to get serious about it.
Oh yeah.
Right? And when you get serious about it, you have to find the string that you're playing, right?
Yes.
And mine I lucked out. I was lucky to find the course that I did to help me get into that meditation cycle.
Totally. It's funny because some people tend to use astrology as well as means to justifying why they are a certain way. I'm a Libra, I'm a Pisces.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry. Yeah.
I used to have a signature in my email that said, "Forgive me, I'm a Pisces. I don't believe in astrology."
So apparently, my most loyal viewers are also my most unsubscribed ones. Wow, love that for me. But hey, if you accidentally click on that subscribe button, I won't stop you. All right, let's get to the good stuff before this gets embarrassing. And the more I talk to other leaders, something I figure out is every organization dreams big. Every organization has great aspirations. But it comes down to the people in the organization, the rock stars who actually make that dream come to life. And it could be, tough to create that kind of a culture where talent feels heard, talent feels seen. So from your vantage point, how do you think leaders could build that kind of an environment where great talent like that is not just rewarded for great work, it's not just recognized for true performance, but also you get that kind of talent to like stay and grow with you and keep pushing the bar higher.
I think that one principle that I learned probably 20, 30 years ago that stuck with me, leaders aren't here to motivate their teams. That's a false assumption. Leaders create environments where self-motivated people succeed.
Yeah.
And there's a big difference. I don't need to go out there and find motivators for people that are motivated by the work they do, by the difference they make, by the way they do things. What I try to do is create a culture where everybody can do what they do best and are motivated by best. And sometimes this causes a problem. I'll give you a great example. In the engineering world, engineers mostly are intrinsically motivated. By and large, that's a stereotype. But by and large, we're motivated by the work to be done, to the accomplishment of curious, right? To getting really far at what we're doing, to solving a hard problem.
Right.
Salespeople, on the other hand, are very extrinsically motivated. They're motivated by the chase, and they're motivated by goals and numbers and dollars. And I don't mean that as a negative at all. Everybody's motivated by different things. So when you bring a motivation program to sales, it's about extrinsic motivators more than it is intrinsic. And when you bring it to engineering, and extrinsic things like high dollar rewards, things like that, become less important. Right. I'm not saying, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying money's not important to everybody. I got that.
Oh yeah.
But the true inner go home and be happy comes when you are working on the thing that you love, that's your natural frequency. And I think that that finding that natural frequency for everybody is not possible by creating a motivation package. You have to create an environment where everybody be self-motivated the way they want to do.
What about this situation when, organizations definitely have like high ambitions, but a lot of times, I mean, it's not uncommon to see that resources are a crunch, but we still have bigger goals. What role do you think leaders can play there to bridge the gap between, wanting to be ambitious, but making do with whatever's available?
Yeah. Well, you have to figure out what your sustaining velocity looks like, and that's really important. I don't think we sometimes know what that is. I think it's hard because for what one person says, if you look at Elon Musk, that's clearly a non-sustaining philosophy, right? Yeah. You can't work sleeping at the office, things like that. But yet, for a limited time, there are people willing to do that, and that's fine. I don't understand that motivation, but that's what motivates them. That's great. For us, sustaining is really about two really important things. First of all, awareness and communication. We must understand what our sustaining volume is, velocity is, and we must communicate that outwardly. Because ultimately choices have to be made. You either have to get to a point where you are exceeding your capacity or you're not. And when you're exceeding your capacity, you have to be doing it for a very limited time. Otherwise, you'll burn out your team. Everybody knows that. So where's that line of what that team can accomplish? What can they do? Well, that comes through communication, both upward and outward. If you're not talking to your folks on a regular basis, you can't understand truly if what their pain is like and understanding. You don't know if they're pushing. It's like a relay race or a race of any sort. How do you know what your capabilities are and how long you can sustain that? Totally. You've got to be there with the person and understand it.
Right.
And we're not. We often are left in our closets as leaders to say, oh, that team has a velocity score of this, and therefore I treat them as a number. And that doesn't work.
Right, and here it's literally velocity is like a factor of distance and speed, so it makes sense.
Yes, it is. It really is. I'd never thought about that, but you're absolutely right. Think about, I don't know if you're a runner or I'm a cyclist. And
I was big into track running.
Really?
I ran
Really?
track
What did you
for
run?
a lot of years. So relay, 100 meters, that was kind of my thing. But then later I got into basketball, although my height doesn't speak for it, but it happened.
You can be a good player if you're not tall.
Yeah.
I play volleyball. I used to be a good volleyball player, and I'm the shortest person on the team. One of my favorite experiences when I was cycling, there was one year where I had a really good year of bike riding. We did about 6,500 miles of bike riding, which meant I was riding every day for pretty good distances. And I rode in 3 centuries that year, which are 100-mile events. And there's one thing you learn about a century is that you in the first 10 miles, You can't imagine how you're going to do 90 more.
Oh,
Then after a while, you get into this rhythm, and the endorphins start running, and the things start running, and you get to about mile 30 and mile 50. You go, I could go 150 miles. You feel like you could do this forever because you're in a sustainable velocity. Then you get to mile 70 and mile 80, you go like, oh, maybe not.
It starts to hit.
Exactly, it gets painful, right?
Yeah.
And any distance runner knows what that looks like. There's a point at which you said, I've got this, and there's a point at which I gotta just get to the end. Our careers are like that, our jobs are like that, our days are like that.
Yes.
You've got to realize, am I at the point where I need to push folks because they're not seeing that this is possible? That's that first 10 miles. To get them in the zone where they think they could go forever.
Oh, yeah.
And then I have to protect them once they get to the end to make sure they can get to the end. Yeah. So what stage are your folks in? If I push you, Vetha, to do something, and you're like, I don't think I can do this, I don't think I can do this. Am I pushing you in the first 10 miles, or am I pushing you in the middle where you really, truly can't sustain that? It's something you've got to learn and figure out yourself.
Oh, yeah.
That's hard. That's really hard. You can't meet corporate goals without understanding individuals' goals. Because if you do, then you're misaligned, and something's going to break.
The more you deal with people, you figure out patterns and then know where to draw the line. If it's really, can the person really go that extra mile,
That's
or
right.
are they going to burn out
That's
midway?
Right. That's right. Imagine you're leading a development team for the first time, and you've got 10 new engineers on your team, and you ask them for estimates.
Yeah.
And you put it down, and you write the estimates down there, and you realize, are these right estimates? Or these don't seem like my estimates. Good, right?
Yes.
And you go by and you say, okay, the second time you realize this guy over here overestimates, this guy underestimates. And then you start, after about, maybe 4 or 5, sprints, you start to understand their pattern and their thinking. You don't try to get them to change their estimates because they're doing that of what they think.
Yeah.
It's up to you to take their number and put it into something meaningful.
Right.
Same thing with leading on that race, right? And pushing. Am I pushing at the right time? Where's their limit at?
Right.
How do they know? Because we don't want to work too hard. We don't want them to work too hard, but we want them to work hard enough that they go home excited about what they accomplished.
Yes.
That's a hard line to find, and that takes time.
You work alongside a lot of other senior leaders, and you've got a lot of senior leaders who are direct reportees to you. So what's like a common theme that comes up a lot when you tend to coach them or get them to go from where they are to like bigger roles, to getting bigger responsibilities? There's some patterns you've seen, some themes you've observed.
There are, and some I wish I would have known when I was becoming a senior leader.
Yeah.
People underestimate there are, as you get promoted in your career, there are what I call the regular promotions, and then there are step promotions. And step promotions are when you're getting into a new role that you have to behave pretty differently. Great example. As a designer, you start off as a designer 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you keep going there. Traditionally, as you get your skills going, as a manager, as a leader, you start doing things like, I've got to lead people. Now I've got to lead large number of people. Okay, those are step increases. Then you got to take another big step into a director role where you're leading other managers. It's a very different role. People don't realize that leading other managers is radically different than leading individual contributors.
Totally.
Because you're now having to influence through another level of influence.
Yeah.
And then becoming a senior director is even bigger than that. And these changes are so significant, they take much longer. So one of the problems we have is that people that are used to getting a promotion every 2 or 3 years now may take 5 to 7 years to get their next level promotion. And so the hardest thing I've had to convince people is that you're going to have to be good at your role for a while.
Right.
You're going to have to be a director for much longer than you were a engineer 3.
Yeah.
You're going to have to be a senior director for much longer. And then the jump to VP is a whole nother game, right? So it's getting them set that their job timelines are different, number one. Number two, you got to realize that it's really difficult because you had a way of doing things, of getting other leaders to do it the way they want to do it, yet accomplish the goal that you're all set out to do. That gets harder as you get further away from individual contributors.
You spent like a good decade in software engineering itself, and then you led engineers there before you moved to lead UXers. What were some changes, in how you used to lead, how you had to lead engineering folks versus how you had to lead UX folks. Was there like a major shift in what you noticed?
Not in the way I lead, but in the way I listen, probably. A little bit different. And we're going to play stereotypes here because those waters mix a lot. In the middle is where most people are. But in the creative side, and they're both very creative, but they're creative differently. One is more fascinated by the problem to solve. The other one is more fascinated by the solution. And so you have to be able to talk the lingua franca. You got to be able to speak the language that they're talking, what's important to them.
Yes.
So the way I lead differently has to be different. I have to take into account designers, which are, I think, generally more empathetic as nature. You have to take that empathy into account.
Right.
And you have to realize things may become a little bit more, not emotional, but you could say the wrong thing and trigger the wrong thing if you're not sensitive to the empathy of the situation. Okay. Whereas a lot of times in engineering, I didn't have to. As a matter of fact, they were kind of proud of the roughness that they had about each other, right? They were very direct. Those are stereotypes, and truly most exist in the middle. But I will tell you this, Vetha, is that my leadership style, while it has changed over the years, I've not seen a way I would, if I were to get a dev team now, I would lead them the same way I lead a design team.
Yeah.
Because I play, as Marcus Buckingham talks about, I play chess, not checkers, right? People are a game of checkers. Every piece is different, has a strength.
Yeah.
And what's fascinating is, if you look at Marcus Buckingham's original work, what he did with Doug Clifton was in the book, Now Discover Your Strengths. He led that whole strengths management movement. I remember taking finding my 5 strengths when I was probably about, I don't know, I think that book came out, I was about 35 or so. And found out that individualization was my top strength. Individualization means that I see the game as individuals all over the place and not as a collective. That's why it's very difficult for me to talk about groups of people.
Right.
So I would say the one thing that's different between then and now is that I definitely don't have a battle plan for how to deal with a large group of folks. I have a battle plan that consists of all the individuals, and it's important for me to get to know those individuals. So like getting a chance to really get to know you this week is going to be the highlight of my week. I will now have a better way to communicate with you as we go through the years together.
Yes.
Because I now have an empathy for what you're doing.
And how you tied empathy to a core skill of designers. It's also probably because the role of designers is more cross-functional than it is of engineers. We have to talk to a lot of people, talk to dev folks, talk to PR PMs, and talk to sales and customer care if necessary. And I think we need to switch our hats based on who we're speaking to, because I might be using a certain kind of lingo when I'm talking or explaining certain things to my dev folks versus speaking to, say, the customer care folks, and the same kind of language is not going to float. So that makes sense.
It does, but there's an irony to that too, and I love what you just said, is that I think if we practice what we do for our customers with our peers, it would be a great situation. But the irony here is it's amazing how often, and I'll use designers only because that's the team I lead right now, we practice great empathy with our clients and our customers, but we don't practice as good empathy with our peers and others. And I think it's something you have to practice at doing, and you have to sit back. We get a little bit sometimes casual, and we get a little bit too real, which is good, but you got to realize that we're still empathetic beings, and it's hard.
I love the way you framed it. Considering the AI era that we're in right now, it's like people who are both 25 years old and people with 25 years of work experience are both on the same leveling field, because we're both starting afresh and both getting adopted to this AI-driven world. Let's start there. If you, Joe, were 25 years old today, what would you do differently, considering you're stepping into this AI-driven world?
Wow. Trying to go back that far, if I was 25 years, what would my motivation would be? What can I build my career on, right? I'd be thinking about what is the thing. And I think that's what's harder today for younger folks, is that we used to have our defined careers before. You're an engineer, you're a developer, you were a UX person, you were a planner, whatever you might be. But now it's not clear what the roles are anymore, right? Is a UX person going to be a developer in the future? Is a developer going to be a designer? How is that all going to work? And what happens to all these other jobs? So the only thing you can do is not prepare for the job, but prepare for the way that you want to take in life and the way you want to grow. So, my number one rule when I interview folks, I only have one main criteria, and that's you must be insanely curious, right? Curiosity solves a lot of ills. And when you're curious at a young age, at an old age, or whatever age it might be, good things come about as a result of it. So if I were 25, I would definitely be pretending I knew less, and try to absorb more, and try to really be curious, and not make up your mind to design what you need to be in the future, but be in that moment where you're deciding, how can I learn as much as I possibly can? Because I don't know what I might be in 5 years. I don't know what I might be in 10 years. It's a different world, and it'd be very difficult for me to survive in a 25-year-old world based upon the history that I have.
Oh yeah, and you, as far as I know, you've had a fair amount of pivots yourself. You were a software engineer before you made a full switch to UX. So
Yeah.
I think curiosity is something, takes you places.
It does. I
Yeah.
like that. Curiosity takes you places. That's a great tagline.
Yeah, I'm low-key bummed out we're in the last segment of this episode, but this brings me to the most exciting question.
Okay.
It's more exciting for me because it's lovely to see the range of answers that I get from leaders, and it's the signature question of the Product Street,
Okay.
which is, what is an unpopular opinion you have about leadership itself, the concept of leadership?
Would be this. Don't read any leadership books, or read them all.
Wow, okay.
You can't go in between. And the reason being is, it's an unpopular one, but it's one that's not stated. I see too many times people take up a leadership book and then adapt that style of leadership as the only style. When I turned probably about 29, 30, I started really getting into leadership because I found myself being the accidental leader. For some reason, every time a group would get together, everybody else would step backwards and I'd be the one to end up leading the team. And that was hard because I didn't know anything about leadership. And so it became a little bit of on-the-job training. And as I moved forward on those journeys, I realized that I had to read one book and I go, oh, I love what John Maxwell said on this. Great. Oh, I love what this person said on that. And all of a sudden I realized that I have a journal, 3 journals that are about this thick, of all the books I've read and all the notes I've done. And what I realized is that how my leadership practice became much better after I read a lot of them, and how bad it was when I just read a couple of them.
Right.
Because we tend to look at one book as being an answer, or 2 books as being the answer. Now, the reason my view is unpopular, sure, a lot of people read a lot of books. I've slowed down over the years because most of the books are saying the same stuff.
Right.
But there are a few authors I will still read no matter what. But I've read literally several 200-300 books on leadership, and I'm an amalgam of all those things I've learned.
Right.
If you're only going to read 1 or 2, that's going to hurt you. So if you're not going to commit to doing all of this work,
Don't start.
don't do it at all and learn it empirically. Don't steal somebody else's leadership style.
Just because it sounds nice.
Yeah. I mean, I go back to, one of the people when I was growing up, one of the persons that was really popular was Jack Welch. And Jack Welch was leading GE at the time. He had these controversial ideas about it's all about shareholder value. He had this thing about what's called top grading, which was you should every year let go 10% of your population. And these companies adopted it like in droves.
Oh.
And he's now pretty much discarded. And I've never liked Jack Welch. I've never been a big fan. But I read his books because I wanted to understand how the other side thought. Some books teach you what not to do. And Jack was a great example of that. But I was the contrarian, meaning that I was one of the only people saying, this guy's not good. He still has some good ideas in between there, but a lot of the things we do wrong today, I think, came as a result of that culture.
But it's also true that, your leadership style evolves over the time, especially when there are technological waves like that of AI coming in. The way you lead also, it's ought to change.
Yeah.
And have you, observed that about yourself? I'm sure you have, but can you tell us about how you've seen it evolve?
Oh, yeah. Let me tell you one particular story, which I'm generally anxiety-ridden about future things, overly anxiety-ridden. And I don't mean to the point where I can't do things, but you can ask my wife when I come home at night, I was like, I'm worried about this, and I don't know what to do about this, and this, and not being able to sleep at night,
Yeah.
waking up 2 or 3 in the morning, wondering what in the heck we're going to do tomorrow on this thing. And she's given me some of the best advice ever. And I won't go into a lot of that because it's so voluminous. But one day at work, I had a gentleman, one of my leaders, my senior directors, say this when I first got to our company. I said, I was saying how much I was concerned about something. And he just casually said, on the way out the door, he said, don't worry, I don't know, but we'll figure this out. I don't know, but we'll figure this out. And here's why that is so important to me. And probably my motto since 7 years ago when I started at the company has driven me to the point where it's on the background, it's in my walls, in my office. It says 3 really important things. First of all, it focuses on the fact that you don't know. We're all a victim of Dunning-Kruger, right? Yeah. As we get older, the more we know, the more insignificant we feel because of all that knowledge. So admitting that you don't know is a really important leadership thing. Vulnerability, authenticity, the key to everything I do. I don't know, but we'll, meaning that it's going to take more than just me. It's going to take a village. It's the African principle of Ubuntu, right? Oh, yeah. I see you, you see me. Right. We exist because of each other. And that's the we'll part of it. And then figure it out. And here's the really important thing. Everything you've done, Vetha, to life right now that has been challenging, that worried you before, that you go, how am I going to get through this? You got through it. You are here today because you've never not gotten through it. Oh, yeah. And then when you realize what is so drastic going to happen today that's going to prevent me from having the same effect tomorrow? It's not. So I don't know, but we'll figure it out. It says everything, maybe a life motto for me. And to this day, I keep quoting him all the time. It's on my board, and I don't think he thinks anything of it, but it was probably the most memorable quote. And it never came from a book. It came from somebody in an office in a casual conversation.
And I think that's very, very comforting.
And I think that to go 360 on this, back to what you said at the beginning, right? Which was, what would you do differently now? And I said, it's an unknown world. Yes. It's more unknown now. Oh, yeah. It's far more unknown now. And all I know is that if I had that advice when I was 25, I would have realized I wouldn't have been as paralyzed by it as some people are today. Yeah. And I wish we could somehow spread that to, it's going to be okay. Yeah. But you got to stay involved.
Thank you so much, Joe. This was such a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on the
An absolute
Podcast
pleasure.
Street.
Thank you, Vetha. I appreciate it.